Despite that, in the last video, we managed to separate the rear half of the car away from the front half. Now we had to do this purely to get this part out here. The broken gearbox and engine mounting. And now we've got to figure out a way how we're going to fix that so we can put it all back together and draw the front half back to the rear. Okay, so we have a couple of options on repairing this gearbox and engine mounting. Option 1 was to 3D scan the original broken mounting and then make our own out of a CNC machine part of aluminium. 2 was to repair the original mounting, both of which have their pros and cons. Now the pros to CNC machining it would be it's made out of one entire piece of aluminium, which would be stronger than the original, but there is cons. Now when they're making it out of the complete CNC machine block, if one of these crank sensors are not in the exact same spot they were from the original mounting, then that could cause the engine to run lumpy, not start at all, or when it's in the boost, not to run the correct boost. So it's a real risk of getting it exactly right, and we could lose millimeters of accuracy from a 3D scan to actually the production of that. But that's the risk. On top of that, CNC machining it is really expensive. But then we have the option of fixing it. And the pros would be reusing the original part so we can be comfortable that it will work. And also, it's a lot cheaper. And if it's repaired correctly, then it's not going to break again. The cons, we don't even know if it's repairable. So, we took it to Bob at the machine shop.
ALS 7 by 7M.
Is that something to do with the metal?
That's the type of material that's made from.
Right.
I got scared when I said magnesium. It's a high magnesium material. It won't weld very nice. It won't weld at all.
Yeah.
But engineer friend here, he's done all the digging. We reckon we can weld this back to original strength.
So let's see if Bob can do this. Let's get to work. First thing he's doing is cleaning the area where he needs to join the broken part of the engine mount to the main part of it. He's got to make it nice and clean and make sure it mounts without it rocking about.
This is the make or break moment, the bit that we've been trying to figure out for a while. We know the type of aluminium that this is cast from. We know that engineers think it's weldable, but whether it's actually weldable in real life or not, we'll find out. It's weldable. This is going to be money. It's weldable.
Good news. It looks like the original mounting can be fixed, and Bob wouldn't attempt to fix it if he wasn't 100% confident that this was going to be strong enough. Now before he does any repairs, he's putting the mounting into a mill, and he's making sure all the measurements line up, so when he does the repair, it's all in the correct place and it hasn't moved. So this is basically just a safety precaution.
So there's two different types of rods that we can use for this. It's 4047 and a 4043. The 443 is better if you're economic, but the 447 flows with better and it can actually grip, flow into the material a little bit better.
Whatever, Bob. Just get on with the repair. Now he's took the measurement, he's cleaning it up, and he's tack welded it together, and then he's hanging it into an oven. That way he can be sure that all the metal is the same temperature when he welds it. Now what Bob has told me is that this weld will actually be stronger than the original cast material that it was made out of. So it won't break on this part again. But to take even more precaution, he's going to do something to make it even stronger than that.
As well, it's so nice. It's just flowing really nice, very low in impurities. It's fair play for Gatti.
It seems like Bob is enjoying himself on this one, and I'm relieved that this does work. We're going to get to use the original part. And now what you can see Bob's making out of cardboard are little infills in the casting to give it some more structural rigidity. First cutting this out of cardboard, then laying it in the gap.
Right, so we've got all the patterns for the infills cut. That's It's going to strengthen everything up. So the next time Alex crashes the car, it won't break at that point.
Bugatti didn't do this from the factory because it would have cost a lot more to do. And the way cast aluminium is made, from what I'm told, it needs to be all one thickness, or else it gets too hot when they're making it. And that's why you see these cutouts in the casting to stop it from getting too hot when it's taking the moulding. The same way Bob drills a small hole when he's put these infills in, just to allow the gases to escape and everything to cool down. And inside here is hopefully our answer. Here is our answer. Here it is. We've chose to use the repaired engine mount. So this is what we're using, the repaired one. Decided that it's the best option to do this. It's going to be stronger than before. Whether that's a good idea or not, we don't know. The strength of it needs to be able to be strong going up and down. This, I don't think, was tested going forward and backwards. A lot of people said that maybe it was meant to break, which I can sometimes can believe, sometimes not believe, because if you're in a small accident in a zero and the engine does move forward, this breaks, and then immediately you need to strip the whole car apart to be able to change this. Now, yeah, I get it, it's a separate part of the car, which makes sense of like, if it is made to break, then it can unlock rather than it being part of the engine. But then you have this situation here. So each one of these is where a crank position sensor goes. The sensor goes in there, and then that picks up a signal from the flywheel, which has teeth on it. And there'll be a missing tooth or a tooth which has a slightly bigger gap between the other one. And what the crankshaft position sensors do is talk to the ECU along with the camshaft position sensors to tell the car when to spark and ignite the fuel. And without this measurement, you could get all of these problems, which would of course cause the engine light. So this is repaired now. We're going to give it a go and put it back in. Back onto there, wastegate's on, and we're not going to know whether the whole thing works until we turn the key. Start repairing. We can only hope we've made the right decision here. And we're only going to know when we get the engine back in the car and turn the key for the first time. I'm confident that the mount is going to be strong enough, if not stronger, but because it's stronger, is that going to cause the issue? Okay, so these are the electronic wastegates, and signal from there will tell that to open and close just by spinning it. This is the hard part. We're going to be able to slide this on and then clamp it to that from behind. So, see if we can get them on. These have a really important job of protecting the engine, stopping the turbo from over-boosting, and they can regulate the boost pressure by opening the wastegate, preventing that extra boost. So it's vital that we get these in place and connect them up to the rod on the end of the wastegate. Wastegate motor in position. Then engine activation. So these bolts, again, Europe titanium, hold the engine mount to the bracket that Bob's loaded on. Once we put these in, the whole engine's going to hang on Bob's weld. So this is going to really be the true test. There's two bolts which hold the engine mounts to the engine mounting, which we're putting in now, and then we're going to find out. Right, here we go. Time to let it rest on its own accord. Pretty good. The whole engine is now resting on Bob's repair. And so far, so good. It's looking like this is going to work. Prime wheels. It's light. Wood says Bugatti. EV. Mine says Bugatti, which doesn't mean it's a Bugatti though. Now, this is important that we torque it because we need every bolt with it, so we need it to sit exactly. And we've got the torque specs. And I'll tell you how we got on later. Now, when we're putting the flywheel on, it can only go on one way. You can see that tiny hole which has a dowel in it. And that's because there'll be a correct position to put it so the crank sensors can get that correct reading. And with the bolts, you're putting a little bit of Loctite on them and then popping them in afterwards. Then this flywheel sits nice and flat, and we don't get any vibrations. Once that's in place, my dad then could start putting in some hoses he had to take out to access the engine mounting when he was removing it before. And if he doesn't put these on, or he doesn't put them on properly, we're going to really struggle to get to them if there's a leak when we add the coolant to the car. That's on. Now, gearbox, battery engine, all that on. This is where it's going to get a bit tricky and difficult. We've got to make sure every single electrical connector goes in the right spot, every single oil line goes in the right spot, and we've got to figure out what fluid, well, we're going to put back in the old fluid, but we've got to make sure how we put it back in is correct. There's so many unknowns here. We don't know whether this is going to start at the end. We don't know whether the gearbox is going to work at the end. It's so unknown. We've got no way to do it. Let's get the gearbox connected to the engine. Let's go. Here's the thing. We have no idea whether there's any special bleed procedure or filling procedure when it comes to the oil in the gearbox. We're going to just have to hope that there isn't. But before we worry about that, we've got to get it onto the car. With the gearbox finally lined up to the engine, we can put in all the bolts and start tightening them to it. After that, we need to sort out where the electrics go. Let's not forget to put the wires on this, else we're splitting the whole car again. The Volkswagen Passat starter motor. And some people have said online that there's no way that this is the 1.9 diesel starter motor. It is. It is the 1.9 TDI starter motor. It is. There's no difference. It's the same part number. Yep, this starter motor is in charge of starting a 1.9 TDI Passat, as well as a W16 Bugatti engine. That's one pretty powerful starter motor. You see here, the part numbers are exactly the same, and they're identical parts. Now that that's fitted, we can send the engine and the gearbox in the air. It is. There is spring on it, so actually pull up on it. Okay, now we can connect all the electrical wires to make sure everything cannot access any of this. Hoses to connect, wires to connect, ground wires, power wires. Oh, and we've got to make sure nothing, no debris gets in the gearbox. All of these solenoids are the ones that are used to select the gears. Do it. And these solenoids are really important. They also have the same electrical connector on every one of them. But luckily, a lot of them are numbered, as well as the wiring is numbered as well. So it should be difficult to mix them all up, but it still is possible. And if we do mix them up, when we select second gear, it might select 4. SV2, SV2, SVPB, my guy. But what I do like is that they put all the solenoids on the outside of the gearbox. That way, if there is a problem, it is accessible. Rather than some cars where they're all internal, which means you have to strip apart the gearbox to find faults on why it's not selecting gears. Now put the power wire onto the starter motor, and finally the CAN wires, which go into the brain of the gearbox. Every single plug we connect is really important now. Now we can send the engine and gearbox back in the air to start connecting all the plugs which are underneath it. More solenoids for first gear and reverse gear. Then we have the wastegate bolts which we're trying to reach now, which we realise we probably should have done at the start. And once they're all connected, the engine can go back down and there's more pipes to add onto it. Aircon pipes, and then oil return pipes go into the tank which provides all the oil for the gearbox on the side. But that's now cleaning out the inlet sections for where the gearbox gets fed its oil. A little bit of lubricant on the seals, and then you can slide in the oil feed and return pipes. And then finally, a rubber breather on the side of the box. Big moment. These are all sensors for something, position sensors. We're going to make sure, even though they're both the same plugs, to put them in the correct places. So we've got one big one, which I think goes in here. Only reason is because this was there. Oh, unless it went that way. Oh, yeah, it's really went that way. Oh, okay, so that's the scan. Then, this one will go in here. These were well hard to get out of. And then this one will go up here. Right. the final one. I'm not sure why there's 3 crank sensors, but it probably has something to do that this car has 16 cylinders. That's a lot of cylinders, so I imagine a lot of sensors. And finally, there's one more oil line to connect from the oil tank to the gearbox, and that's all good.
All in. Just got to put the oil in now. Turn the key.
Put the oil in, it's going to be serious. If we're going anything from Mark's Brigade, we think his gearbox didn't work because it had swarm in the oil. We want to make sure this oil is spotless, so we kept it in a jug over there. We don't know what oil goes in it. We want to make sure we filter it before we put it into this. So we're going to need some kind of filter or a gauze before we put it in.
How do you know it's got enough gearbox oil?
The only way we know is because of what we took out. Mission to get a funnel and then some kind of filter to filter the oil in before it goes into the gearbox. Hello! And I think we found the place. Cure, the filter and the sieve. We just gotta hope it works. Right, here we go. We're going in there. Yeah, it smells like gear oil in there, so we're okay. Just double checking. Look at that. We're taking mad precaution here. What I'm doing here is cutting up an oil filter that I bought from the shop so that I can lay this at the bottom of the funnel and filter the gear oil through it. And in goes the gear oil that we took out. We have no idea what grade of oil this is, and we don't know how much to put in. The only way we do know is because of how much actually come out of it. Filling it through this breather pipe took a long time, so in the end we ended up taking it off and then filling it directly into the oil tank, which seems to be a lot quicker, and then I can put the breather pipe back onto the oil tank and bolt it all down. And again, it's a sort of fingers crossed and hope that we've done that correctly. Is that it? And with that done, it's finally time to join the front to the rear of the car. Before we put on the front onto the back, this got damaged, but when the engine shifted forward, it squashed this pipe lock, squashed it. So that's going to be a nightmare to get to when the two are put together. So we're going to take this off, and because we can't order one, we're going to probably do a couple clamps, and that'll do it. Because we can't get any parts from the Bugatti, we're having to repair and think outside the box with this one. So we're cutting off the broken bit of pipe and replacing it with a rubber fuel hose, which is more than enough for a little overflow coolant pipe. And now we know this isn't going to get squashed. We clamp it down, and then we can fit in the second half of the metal pipe and clamp our new rubber hose to it. This should be perfect. Here we go. Let's join the front to the back. Okay, here's the job that Bugatti thought we couldn't do in the first place. And this is the tooling that Bugatti used to join their cars together. Ours, slightly different. They have a machine which probably costs millions of pounds. For us, fin wheels. But it does seem to be working. When we get this car joined together, it's only held with 14 bolts, which are just it. 14 nuts to hold the front to the back. It's looking good. And these are titanium bolts, tightened on to titanium studs as well. We want to make sure that the back half of the car is sitting flush with the front half before we start tightening, because we don't want to stress any of these bolts more than we need to. And that's what the machine at Bugatti is really used for. So we've had to be extra careful here. With the bolts in the side, we can now jack up the rear of the car and start adding the wheels to it. One wheel on, then the other. With the rear wheels on, the dad can go inside the car and attach the gear cable, which allows us to manually put the car into neutral. He's turning that over now, and I can pull the car back to get it into the two-post ramp. Last bolts to go in. It has to go to the two-post ramp so we can put in the final bolts which are underneath the car. And it's looking like we're going going to do it?
It needs to be separated from the car. You can't do that in a garage. There's just a few places in the world with the right equipment and only a few people in the world with the right training to be able to do that.
Right, we've got to torque up these bolts. 14 of them. 20 newton meters first on the first turn, then 70. Now, I guess you're probably wondering how we're finding the torque specs for the vital components like the back half of the car. Well, thanks to some TV programs and YouTube, we found them. You can see this German bloke here torquing up the bolts to 70 newton meters. That was after he tightened them first to 20. So we're just going to copy exactly what he did. And that does feel right. 14 bolts now going to 70 newton meters. Well, not exactly right, as I'm about to find out. There's 4 bolts underneath the car, which are actually a slightly different size. And because they're a different size, they probably had a different torque spec. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no.
Never seen you snap a bolt in the 40 years.
Yeah, the one time I picked up a torque wrench is when you snap it. I snapped the bolt, yeah. Thing is, if you've got to separate it to get this out, I'm really hoping we don't have to separate the car again to get this thread out of the torque. You can see it snapped off just here. I definitely used the wrong torque spec for this bolt. Now I've got to try everything to get this thread out of the torque. These bolts are so brittle because they're made out of titanium and they're designed to snap, so if you're in an accident, the rear end of the car like this can completely separate from the front where it's the safest because you're sheltered in a carbon monocoque. So if you use stainless steel bolts, there's a chance they'll bend and wouldn't snap off as easy. But if you over torque the bolt, there's risk of it snapping. Looks like I've got lucky here.
Perished.
But now we need to find a new bolt.
It ain't that bad because we've managed to get a titanium M8 with a 1.25 thread pitch and a 50mm long bolt for $11, and it's titanium, it's CNC machine, and I've got a free sticker sheet with it, so that should be coming in the next couple of days. Ain't that bad. We got it out. Mine up. Can't wait for my sticker sheet.
Hey, mistakes are always made, but you guys get to see the highs and the lows. And if you enjoy that, I guess now's a great time, if you're not subscribed to the channel, to hit that subscribe button. We've still got a long way to go on this Bugatti, and I want you all to join the journey with me. With the front now connected to the rear, it's time to connect all the components which mechanically connect the front half to the rear, like the prop shaft in the middle, which connects the differential to the gearbox, the coolant hoses which go from the back of the car to the front radiators, and a bunch of wires. With that from underneath, there's plenty more to do on top. Hoses going into the engine, and then vitally fuel hoses as well, which are going out the fuel tank in the carbon monocoque and being pushed into the engine. On the side of the car, there's more hoses for intercoolers and radiators. They're all got to be connected, and then vitally Without these wires, there'll be no communication from the back half of the car to the front. And with that in, I can now start putting in the air boxes. Whilst my dad's putting in a coolant reservoir, which is purely just for the turbos, and once the air boxes are in, there's a massive air guide which sits over the side of it as well. And whilst I'm doing one side, my dad's doing the other. With them on, I can't forget the fuel filler line. Got to connect the hose up there, there's a ground wire which connects to it, and then I can bolt that to the rear frame of the car, and finally, it's looking like most of the parts are connected from the rear of the car to the front.
It is together to a point. There's a lot of stuff missing off the back, okay? I've just been thinking more and more as I'm doing this. Alex drove this car a lot without any coolant in. And we've learned, which I've never seen happen before, but we've learned from Matt behind the camera, Hurricane, who actually drive it about 10, 15 minutes down the road with no coolant in his Hurricane, that it burned out a seal on his water pump and it leaks water. And we ain't gonna know whether this car has done the exact same thing, could have done turbo seals, could have done anything, because Alex has been driving it without coolant. I'm a bit paranoid about that, and we can't put the water in until we do the radiators on the front. That's another issue for later. For now, we need to even see if it starts up. We need to see if it even dries, and to make sure that it starts up, we need to have brake pressure. So we're going to lift the car in the air. We need to bleed the brake because we need to disconnect the back from the front, and the brake lines have come apart. So we need to refill the brake fluid, get all the air out of them, so we can get a brake pedal. There's still wiring to connect in there. And there's still all of that to go on. So one step at a time. Let's do the bleeding the brakes first, and this is important. No pressure.
So, it's off with the wheels again. This is so we can access the brake calipers, so we're able to get all the air out of them. First job, to fill it with brake fluid. Normal .4 brake fluid, like any of the Volkswagen car it takes. Then I'm going to hop in and start pumping the brake pedal.
I'm going to pump the brake, try and push out all the brake fluid out to the corners, and then going to crack the bleed nipple, get all the air out.
Tell me when.
When? Yeah, you've got a long way to go. There's no air coming out.
My dad's starting with the brake caliper furthest away from the brake reservoir, and you can see all the air bubbles coming out the brake fluid now. Till he's happy, then he'll tighten the bleed nipple back on. And there's also another bleed nipple on the inside of the caliper. And we're doing this over and over.
Doing all of this to the car, some people might be scared on buying it. And I'm trying to save the pennies to buy it. I really want this car. The fact that we're rebuilding it, I'm getting attachment to it already. But there is one thing that will devalue this car for a very long time in the future, and that is the car vertical check. No matter how good this car looks, at the end, it will always have the scar on the car vertical check.
And I can see on the car vertical check for this car that it's registered as damaged. And it has a salvage title. And we're never going to be able to remove that.
Now imagine you're checking a car out on car vertical that you're about to buy, and you find something a little bit fishy about it. You can use that as a bartering tool, or you could use that as a tool to go, you know what, I'm going to kill her off and buy another one with a better car vertical score. And that's exactly what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to use it as a bartering tool to buy Alex down. I'm buying this Bugatti shoe on personal.
On the check, it gives you everything you need to know about the car. How many owners it's had, whether it's had any mileage for, or ever been exported. And if it wasn't an accident, sometimes it'll even show you photos of the car when it was auctioned off at the car crash auction site.
What's the pedal like?
Solid! Now check your car out on car vertical, you can do with a link in the description box below. And when you take your car out, make sure you use the discount code to save some money on that check. It's on the screen right now. Oh, the next step is a really good step on this Bugatti. Let's get it on.
Before that step though, whilst we're here, I should be doing this. Transmission, ECU, plugging in.
I assume they put the transmission ECU here because it's closer to the gearbox, which means less wires and less weight. and it's quite nicely stored underneath the driver's seat.
That's that in. Now that that's in, I can put the carpet on because I'm going to put the carpet in because the accelerator pedal goes over the top of the carpet, which is down there. We only have a brake pedal, and I don't know how this is going to react with starting it without an accelerator pedal. So we probably should do that. We should have to revisit here until we press that start button. Right, let's go.
I'm hoping I haven't just jinxed it. In goes a foam piece, then the super thin carpet.
Accelerator pedal. Wow!
And to be honest, this pedal is nothing special. It's just one big piece of plastic, not even been aluminium. And all this does is bolt in with 4 bolts above the carpet. 1500 horsepower, powered by a bit of plastic.
Okay. Accelerator pedal in, brake pedal fled. We're getting there. Time to go to the rear. Ooh. Here we go. The whole reason I took apart the back of this car because Alex wanted a new exhaust. I agree because I think it should have a new exhaust. I want to experiment with it, so I'm not sure anybody else has put an exhaust on a Chiron Persport. First off, let's show them the Valvetronic, which they've specially made for us within 2 weeks. Let's get this bad boy out of it.
On the second channel, my dad removed the standard exhaust, boxed it up, and sent it to Valvetronic so they can develop a new one.
I'm kind of in the middle, just doing the baseline fixturing for the final assembly, determining where all of our support points need to be, any other modifications we need to make.
Well, in terms of designing the flanges, these had to be custom milled in the CNC machine. So this was the diameter that you required in terms of the spec sheet and in terms of our machining process. Bingo. We have our main X-pipe configuration section. We have our 2 bypass sections, which are going to go down to the side, which are the outer tips.
And as you can see, they were hard at work in creating a brand new one within 2 weeks. Welding, fabricating, 3D scanning, and then put it all into production. And finally, after all of this, they come to deliver me the final product.
Oh my days, what the heck is going on with that? That's crazy.
Complicated.
So, some art piece.
When we took off the stock exhaust, we were talking about this inside, you need all 6 tips because the car moves so much air. So bringing the 2 centralized sections together to help refine the tone, when you have these bypasses out inside, this is 3.5 inches, as much air as possible.
So much.
And here it is, a 1-of-1 Valvetronic Bugatti Chiron exhaust, looking way better than the original one. But will it sound better?
So, you have the turbos. Come out of the turbos, and out of the turbos, you're going to have 4 exhaust pipes. They lead to catalytic converters, primary catalytic converters. They have one sensor to measure the air and fuel ratio that the engine is burning, and then another sensor after the catalytic converter, which measures the air and fuel ratio after it's passed through the catalytic converter. And if you remove the catalytic converter, the second sensor is going to have a false reading because it's going to be like, what's going on? The catalytic converter isn't working, and it may put the car into limp mode. We didn't want to risk that. If we do that, it means we need to tune the car. And if nobody can tune this car, we risk that the engine is in limp mode forever. But this car has secondary catalytic converters just for emissions, and these things are absolutely carnage. If we remove this, the better airflow coming out of the exhaust means more power. There's no sensors after this, so the exhaust and the car is not going to know that we've removed these. So we're going to bring the kind of driveway vibes to a Bugatti, and instead of making this pipe, which we did contact Austin about, of making this pipe here to replace this secondary cap, it says all it's essentially going to be is the exact same pipe without it. Remove the secondary catalytic converter. There's precious metals in it, we're going to keep them, and of course, we can sell them.
Hey, everybody want to see me stop. Breaking out walls, no sheetrock, hot boys steaming off top like teapots.
So this is a little unorthodox, but I think it's going to work. I I've done this plenty of times before on some of my old cars, but the difference, none of them have been Bugattis. All these essentially do is clean up more air that leaves the exhaust. And you'll find that any flat car doesn't have any of these because it restricts the flow. And that's why we're getting all of this out, which wasn't easy. We eventually managed to get it all out, which means this Bugatti will be pretty much straight cars. They aren't known for being good sounding cars, and we're not going to know whether it sounds any good until we turn that key.
It looks good. We're about to find out whether it sounds good. We've got to turn it all up. We're going to attach the whole back end, put everything in, we're ready to go. Do you know, like, if it sounds like an SVJ with third day, it's never going to sound like it's the turbos that kill the car.
I think the turbos are the primary solution.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really loud. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to. I think we're going to hear the turbos whirring on the other end. They're not known for sounding good. These cars, they're not known for sounding good. So we could have made it work.
The anticipation is killing them. Now we've got to tighten up both the clamps which hold the Valvetronic to the standard exhaust, and now we've got to cover it all over with this horrible heat shield, but it is needed.
The whole weird crash, sensors, bars, everything going on.
Again, like the rear part of the car, this rear crash bar is attached with titanium bolts. I can only assume for the same reason that in an accident, they'd snap off easily. And now that we tighten that bit, we can start fitting the rest of the parts which attach to this rear frame, including all the ECUs. There's 2 engine ECUs, a transmission control unit, more radiators which are on the back, and of course the run down and connect to the ABS sensors, radar sensors, and more electronics. So the time consuming job, it's way longer than what you're looking at.
Everything is put in, no turning back, all the wires are white. Really confident. So we're committing.
There's no turning back now. The fuse cover is going on, and I'm pretty confident I've plugged in everything correctly.
Not every day, and now you can say, put together a shoe on.
There's still some more final bits to go on, like the ground wires. It's in a really tricky spot, but these are really important. And then I'm putting on some carbon paneling on the back, which simply bolts to it, and once that's on, there's some mesh which goes over the top, just for a bit of decoration really. And then the dad's just got to finish off the fuse box on the left-hand side of the car as well. And with that all done, there's only one more piece we need to fit.
Here we go. This is it. Whole car's together. The final part. The battery is here. So now we're about to find out whether it starts, whether it works, whether it's done everything right, what it sounds like, and whether it goes into gear. This is a big moment because we're going to find out whether we've got a lot more work after this, or we've passed stage 1 of what Bugatti didn't think was going to do. Actually, stage 2.
What do you think it's going to sound good or sound bad?
I have no idea. I think it's just going to sound louder.
I hope it shoots flames right now, but I also don't. I remember, like,
I think we'll have to get really hot to shoot flames. And we have no coolant in it yet. And Alex has been driving it a lot without coolant, but we just taught him that afterwards before. So it's a bit too late for that.
So the exhaust's on, the rear half of the car is now connected to the front half of the car, and finally, the battery is the only thing preventing us from starting it. A $40,000 special lithium-ion battery which fits right in this gap here underneath the car. I can only assume to balance the weight, and there's literally nowhere else you can put it. We're pushing it in place. There's 4 bolts which hold it to the top. 1 negative going on. There we go. there's another terminal on the other side, positive and negative. Push these on, tighten them up, and pretty much ready to go. Now it's time. Everything's connected, right? We've done the brakes, done the ground wires, we've done everything. You're going to be the one to turn the key, yeah? Me? Yeah, I think we should do it. Yeah. Okay? Right, it's time. The moment we've been waiting for. The whole time since we've been back in Miami. We're just refilling up the hydraulic fluid for the nose lift and the suspension. Then it's time.
Ready.
What do you think is sound like?
Loud.
Get it started. If it runs good, then we get fuel. Big moment.
Oh my god, please stop.
Yeah? Let's do it. It ran first time. It was extremely loud.
Is it not louder? I can't tell. Like, it sounds like
Yeah.
I expected like a different noise.
Yeah, I think it sounds the same, but louder.
But like, not like an SVJ from stock to straight.
No.
It sounds like 20% deeper.
I don't think Bugatti have made a car that we can't get it any louder. Now, no matter what we do to this exhaust, we're not going to be able to make this sound like an SVJ. Essentially, this car is just a Volkswagen W8 engine attached to another W8 engine to make the W16. And because it has 4 turbochargers, that tends to kill the sound along with the firing order and loads of different aspects. So no matter what we do, the car is always going to have this type of tone. It's just loud, isn't it? It's just loud. I don't think they make a.
Oh,
Oh no! It's fuel.
oh.
It's not oil.
Get a lighter.
Yeah, it would have popped the fuel on.
Crazy, man.
Do you not like it?
I don't dislike it, but I'm not like, wow, sounds amazing, you know, night and day difference. No, it sounds the same, just like 20% deeper.
No. We're good. We can test the gears. That's it. That's good. It just popped off.
Oh, what, the cool line popped
Yeah,
off?
it just popped off. Yeah. I want to see whether it goes in gear. As long as it goes forward on that bit. Can you just press the colours? Good news, starts up, we fix the lead, it goes into gear. Bad news, Bugattis don't make a good sounding car.
I'm just happy that the car's back together and it turns on. People swear this car was never going to turn on ever. It's really just putting on the bumper, the wheels, and we can just go.
It's that easy.
Wow. Think we can get a Bugatti certificate now?
I think we need to see whether it runs to temperature or Alex has destroyed the seals in the water pump. Let's find out in the next video. Thanks so much for watching this one. If you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, and see you in 296. And this is the hybrid battery out of it. And we think the reason why this car don't start is something to do with this and the hybrid battery. Since I bought this Ferrari, we've never been able to get it started. Turn on.
How can I help you? How can I help you?
Despite replacing the airbags and looking everywhere for a pyro fuse. It could be, and we've tried absolutely everything apart from this, the battery management system. This is the computer which controls everything. this is telling the battery not to power up, then we've got a problem, and that'll be the reason why this doesn't start. But our theory has been dismissed. We sent this module to the airbag team to see if they could see if there was any crash data on there that was preventing us starting the car. They come back to us and they said, not one person can actually talk to these battery control modules. Your best chance is to go to the main dealer to do it, which we didn't want to have to do. So it left us with no other option. If we want to take this car to Ferrari themselves, we've got to finish the build. But in doing so, we did something which caused Ferrari to completely put this rebuild to a halt. First thing we are missing is the quarter panel, but we managed to get one second hand from Eurospares. We've got to install this. The issue is when we install this, we're going to obstruct ourselves getting to all of those parts and wires there. And there is one more part that needs to go on. Let's sort that out first, get the parts installed. So if we've got any hope of Ferrari actually helping us out here, we've got to get the car complete. Because any excuse for Ferrari not to wipe the crash data, that's even if they can, then they're not going to do it. We need to have the car fully complete, everything plugged in, and it pass all of Ferrari's checks. So the next thing to go on is the quarter panel, but that's not before I put on this aircon line. And I believe the aircon has a pretty important job on this 296. Some of it is obviously used for the climate control, but others I think is used to cool the battery as well. But with that in, I can now put on the quarter panel. We're going to slide this thing into place, and at the back, it just bolts to the rear frame. But the front, we're going to need to weld it to the original quarter panel. First, I'm cutting the second-hand quarter panel. Yes, now, should be able to overlay the panel. Lovely! And then we'll have to make this cut perfectly so there is like a millimetre gap, so Bob don't cry at us because he's got to fill the gap with weld. I'm going to use a self-tapper just to temporarily hold the quarter onto the inner skin. Then I can start by cutting the old quarter panel so it perfectly lines up with the new quarter panel that we're putting in place. And then using a Dremel to do so, that's got the finished blade on that I've got in the workshop. I'll then take out the self-tapping screw so I can access more of the old quarter panel and make the cut right underneath it. Yay! And now that I've pulled it away, you can see it lines up pretty much perfectly. Almost ready for welding now. Okay, I have prepped the quarter ready to go on. I've used all the mold grips I've got to hold it there. I put the door shut, tightened on to hold it in place. This gap has now got bigger because I've moved it all in the correct place, but I think Bob can sort that out. I'm sure he can sort that out. Again, we should be riveting these, but if we can, because the holes are so big because it was used, we're going to have to weld them. It's going to make zero difference, so you're never going to know once it's all been painted. I've cleaned up as much as I can. The main tester for me was, I know the front's going to line up because I can reference it off the old door shot, but the rear, I just wanted to see if that there's still bolts in there, and of course there's washers, just in case it doesn't line up, because the Ferrari has the same issue. Lines up to the holes, and you can see it's going to line up pretty good on there, and same story on that side, it's going to line up pretty good on there. So I'm quite happy with Bob to start packing it in all the little places, and once that's done, the airbags are arrived and we can start building this car up, but we're not going to be building it up with standard body panels. That's a whole different can of worms to open. First off, let's get Bob in here. Now we're going to weld. Bob's going to start off by welding in bits of the inner frame on the quarter panel to the existing frame at the back.
There's two skins here. The outer skin has a big hole. The inner skin has a little hole. And I have to try and fill up the little hole and then the big hole after that. Fill up the big hole first, then it won't stick to the inside skin. Then it won't bond at all. So it's a bit of a challenge because some of them are really, really small outside holes. So you need to get to the inside hole. And there's steel in there as well from the old build out with it. So it's been a bit of a nightmare, but we're clean up the
Basically, to fit these from factory, Ferrari uses these self-piercing rivets. There'll be no hole in the inner or outer quarter panel, and these self-piercing rivets would literally self-pierce through both metal, holding them both together. But because we've had to drill out the old self-piercing rivets, and then we ordered a second-hand quarter panel, which has holes from the previous owner cutting that out as well, we're now just having to weld up both holes and weld the outer skin onto the inner skin. It will still have the same strength as a self-piercing rivet, and once we clean it all up, it should look no different to OEM. It's just a bit more of a challenge for Bob to do so.
We almost know from Friday there's no car refuse in here, there's nothing we can do about it, so we might as well reassemble this back up, so once he's finished, we can get this back into the car and slowly start plugging everything in, because if we can get the ignition even to turn on at the end of all this work, we've made some really good progress. Let's start building this up. Bob's going to take it away on the quarter.
Next thing for Bob to do is join the old quarter panel to the new quarter panel, filling in the little gap that I've just cut out. He's going to TIG weld this up, and afterwards when the car goes to the body shop, it'll be all cleaned up and joined seamlessly. And as we're finding out with all these new cars, they're all made out of aluminium. Hence why we're having to use Bob to do all of the TIG welding, whereas some of the older stuff is made out of steel, which makes it that little bit easier to weld. And whilst Bob's cracking away at that, I'm popping back in the computer for the high voltage battery, and then putting the high voltage battery back to a state it was when I originally took it out. Because we're confident there's no pyro fuse inside this battery anymore, we've just got to hope that if there is crash data stored on that battery control module, then we're able to cancel it off with a diagnostic tool.
Quarter, roll it on. Cheers, Bob. We've noticed some even more stuff, which is crazy. Look at the amount of shims on the back of this one, bearing in mind it's a second hand. That's how it comes. But on this side, ours had no shims on. So the good news about this is that even if we've got the quarter slightly out, it doesn't matter, because Ferrari just put them slightly out from factory anyway, so then you just pile it up with shims. This is all good. Now we've got to build up everything inside the quarter. Hybrid battery's going to go on and we start building this car properly, all back together now. Come on, we've got to get this started in this video. We've got it.
Okay, quarter panel's in. Time to connect everything back up again that was inside the quarter panel. Like the engine ECU, loads of wires, and loads of computers as well. Then in goes the filler net for the fuel. This bolts in with 3 bolts, and then once that's bolted in, I've got to go back to the other side and connect up all the parts which connect to the filler net. Once that's in, there's loads more modules, motors, computers, and shrouding, which goes all underneath this quarter panel. And I've got to make sure everything is all plugged in, because I don't want to revisit this place again. With all that in, the last bit to put on is the fuel cylinder.
Everything is in the rear quarter. That was a lot of wires, but it's all connected and it's all in. We're missing a few brackets here and there, but we'll do that when we do the final fit up. For now, we want to make sure we can get this car started. So now that that's all in, we can finally put back in the hybrid battery, which was built back up, pop that back in place, and then we can work on the airbags on the inside, because the curtain airbags have arrived, and if they were the things that were stopping from starting, that would be amazing. But who knows? Let's get the hybrid back in, and then we're almost back to how it was before all the crash.
Now, I mentioned earlier that we did put all of the airbags back in the car, but there was a pair of airbags which were missing, which were the curtain airbags, and we was waiting for these to be delivered from Ferrari. But now, they finally have arrived. And when we first picked up this car, and it was at the Ferrari dealership, the one thing the Ferrari tech said to us is that everything has to be plugged in on the canvas system for the car to start. And once we put back in this hybrid battery, and we've put back in the curtain airbags,
Is it? It's connected up.
everything on the canvas system should all be connected. So there's no reason why the car wouldn't turn on or start. Right now we connected up the orange high voltage line straight to the high voltage battery, and then the black connector which goes on the battery as well is all the canvas that talks to the computer inside that high voltage battery.
All in. Ready to fire up now. We put the seat airbags in, seats in, back in. We're going to take the seats out again, don't we? Yeah. We'll take the seats out, the airbags in, and then bumpers on, lights on. See you in a bit.
Now the reason we're taking the seats back out is because it makes it a lot easier to reinstall the curtain airbags once they're out.
Curtain airbags here, courtesy from the airbag team. Supplied from Ferrari though, because they make them weird. You can't reset them. So here they are. If these are the key to starting the car, or at least getting the ignition on the car, I'm going to lose my mind. But once these are in, most of the plugs should all be plugged in. Right, let's get this bad boy in.
So this could be the final part that we need to get the ignition on the Ferrari 296, the curtain airbags. These sit in the A-pillars, and there's just a few Allen key bolts which hold it to the A-pillars. Then they plug in at the back. Curtain airbags in! And that is it. 2 curtain airbags in. Time to put back in the seats. Even though these seats are manual adjust, they do still have an electrical connector underneath. I imagine they use the same wiring loom as other 296s which have electronically controlled seats. But the part that they're plugging into on the manual seats just sort of bridges the gap to tell the computer that everything is all okay and there's no open circuit. And finally, I'm just plugging in everything which plugs into the roof.
Okay, now we're pretty much everything plugged in. We do have a new door, which we're going to fit later on because we do need to fit the door up for the other stuff that we're doing in the video. But everything is plugged in apart from the front bumper, the rear bumper, and the door. So let's make sure that's all in. And there's no reason why the ignition shouldn't come on then. Absolutely no reason, because if it doesn't come on, there is some serious issue with this car. Right, first step, plug the door in. Boom. Okay, that's plugged in.
Then I'm going to put the headlight in at the front. Then the front bumper. 2.
Now the bumper.
And now the rear bumper.
All in. All in, guys. Everything is plugged in now, isn't it? There's not one thing unplugged. Over the back. Battery going on. 3, 2, 1. Oh. Yeah, looks great. Yeah. We're back to where we were.
Let's see if ignition turns on.
What's with the hazards?
Yeah, you just press this button and it goes.
Turn the ignition on.
What is it? Still the same thing. Flashing hazards with no ignition or no start. The doors will lock and unlock. That's pretty much about it. With the warning, hybrid system failure, go to dealer. We've now tried everything. And as far as the car knows, it's completely back together. It still won't turn on.
It's 2:25 in the morning, and I've gone through every single fuse on this car, and I cannot find a faulty fuse on it. If it is just a case of like a main leader plugging into it and cancelling it all off, great. But I feel like I'm wasting my time if it is something to do with that. So I am really stumped at the minute. I'm really stumped. I'm in two minds. I'm only type is because I want to learn about them. I need to learn about them. I need to be future proof. So once I know now how they act, I'll know in 10 years' time, I'll have the experience to know how to overcome challenges like this. I'm trying to future proof myself, but if it's not possible without the main dealer, I'm doing this for no reason. I think I can't do it without the main dealer, which is what they want. Exactly what they want. For now, I think the next step and the only step in the rear diffuser is to make it all work. It's going to be good though, but it's worth doing it now before it gets painful.
A lot of these parts don't come with the race car. On the standard car, we have a reversing camera which sits at the bottom of the bumper, but on the race car, there's a camera which sits in the centre of the grille, which they actually use as their rear view mirror. I've got to detach the standard reverse camera and work out a way. Next step, the rear diffuser. What's missing out of this? is the parking sensors. As you can see in the standard rear diffuser, there's holes for the parking sensors. So we're going to have to drill them out on the race car bumper and then add the loom to it. We've got to make sure these are in the right place. Got my drill bit, I need to not go up to the tape, else I can't go past the tape, else there's a big problem. I'm using my Christmas tree drill bit, as I like to call it, to drill out the hole for the parking sensor. And then I can line the parking sensor up and it fits perfect. Holders, once they clip into there. Now I've got to do this throughout the whole rear diffuser to fit all of the parking sensors into it. And then my dad's going to stick on this glue to the parking sensor holders so we can stick them to the rear diffuser. And once they're set, you can slide in the parking sensor and they'll fit just like the OEM one. And that's the rear diffuser pretty much complete. Now there's a few holes to drill into the rear crash bar because there's some threads that I need to put in there to mount some additional brackets for the rear diffuser and the rear bumper. I've already marked them up and now I can slide on the brackets and bolt them to the rear crash bar. Looking good there. And I guess the next step would be to fit it all to make sure everything lines up and works with the standard quarters again. We've got a temporary number plate mount in the back of the bumper at the minute, but the bumper is fine. That is. The bumper is looking pretty good. And now that we're look at that! It's not too we need to get the top panel because I want to properly put this bit on. Once we plug everything in, we're going to have open starting it. That looks mental. It's going to be hard to do the finished product right now, but that looks mad. I don't know what's going to come next. So, I'm doing that's it. Now, there's a few things that the 296 Challenge car has, which the road car doesn't. And one thing that you might notice is that the exhaust exits are completely different, which means we're going to need to take off the standard exhaust. There's good and bad news about all of this. Good news is the exhaust is off and we can kind of get an idea of where the new exhaust will come out. We'll install that exhaust probably in this video, but I've had to take off this, which is the moving, I think they call it an air curtain or something. This, when you get to like 70 miles an hour, it pops up a little wing out the back. The good news is that this is electronic, and if I want to drive the car without any faults on the dash, we've got to either figure out like what resistance we need to put through it, which is going to be hard to like blank the plug off, or lift this motor off, hide it in that engine bay and plug it in. That way, as far as the car knows, it's got a wing and there's no issues with it. And I think that's probably what I'm likely to do, especially if we're trying to get it started as well. The reason I have to take that off is because the race car has a big wing installed on the back. These are the brackets for the wing, which hold it. This is closed brackets, and this bolts onto that like that. But I thought that this was going to be able to easily mount on using the previous mount of those ones. But I think we've got an issue because I think these are supposed to go like this. That looks okay like that. The issue is when you come to fit this. I don't think the race car has this bar here, which would make sense because all that this bar does is hold this thing on, which holds that thing on, and that thing is not on the race car, that's the battery thing. So I think what we've got to do is cut this bar out, which would then make all this go floppier, and then I think we've got to put in our own bar on the side of that to support this bar up. So we're going to need Bob to do some welding, and then we'll be able to slide the wing in But the other issue of all of this, once you put this on, I need to be 100% sure that that goes in that place, that bracket goes in that place, because the new back panel goes on here. This is the old one. You can see here, if that bracket's there should be a hole in this panel. And if I don't put that bracket in the right place, and then the new panel comes and the hole's somewhere over here, then we've really had it because I put the bracket in the wrong place. So what I really want to do before I do any work is wait for this rear panel to come, because then I can be 100% sure that that bracket goes there before I start chopping out any chassis parts to fit this gigantic wing. It's not going to go that high, but it will. I think it'll be. Yeah, it's going to be around like that. Okay, so before we figure that out, I'm going to take the motor off the old wing that was on the car, plug it into the loom, and then hide it somewhere in this engine bay. I may not even get a fault if I unplug this wing and got rid of it, but for now, as the car doesn't start, I don't want to take any risks, so I'm just hiding it away in that engine bay. And then we can pay our attention back to the exhaust, and I'm going to remove the standard downpipes which come out of the turbos.
This is the new exhaust that's going on the car.
And yeah, this is the new exhaust which is going on the car, the Valvetronic downpipes, which replace the standard ones. And as far as I know, these are exactly the same on the race car. No modification needed on these. We've just got to switch everything over off the stock pipe onto the Valvetronic one, and then both of these are ready to go back onto the turbos. This should not only increase the power of the car, it should increase the sound as well. I've got to tighten everything up onto the turbos and then add the Ferrari engine cover, and now we can address the rest of the exhaust situation.
My job is to get the new exhaust tips out here. We've been given this part of the exhaust, but it comes out in the wrong place. I've tried to order this size titanium, but I can't get it in the UK. It'll take 4 weeks to get here. So what I'm going to do instead is where it turns from stainless to titanium, I'm going to with some stainless steel pipe that I've got here. And with the new bumper, it needs to come out in this area instead of this area. So I'm just going to go straight out. There'll be a little bit of twisting and turning, but I need to make loads of stuff. So this pipe doesn't come in the same size as the American pipe, so I need to modify that somehow. And then I need to make all these fittings as well. They're all odd sizes as well, so I need to make them. And I'll formulate a plan as I'm going along.
So Bob's got to now create the rest of the exhaust that leave these front pipes and go out of the rear bumper. This is the Valvetronic exhaust, which we're not going to be able to use. But I'm sure Bob can figure something out whilst I start building up the front bumper, which looks completely different to the standard front bumper. This looks absolutely sick. It is way wider than the stock bumper, and that's an issue, which we'll get onto. It's also heavier. It's also a lot heavier than the stock bumper. But apparently, the 488, which was the previous challenge car, had loads of understeer. So I think they've added loads more weight on the front, and I think they made it wider on the front as well to stop the understeer. The difference, though, between this and the road car bumper is that the road car bumper has parking sensors in. So now we've got to figure out how we can get these parking sensors into the challenge car bumper, because that is it a camera as well? No, just parking sensors. Meanwhile, Bob's found the old exhaust tips of the SVJ, and these seem a perfect fit for the holes which are in that rear bumper. So it looks like he's going to start modifying them.
When it's cold, we'll pop it in there. I'm just going to tack weld it in for now, and then start building up the rest of the link pipe. So it needs to be a little bit twisting and turning to get where it needs to go, but we'll figure that out in a bit.
This is going to be insane. SVJ Valvetronic exhaust tips fitted to a 296 exhaust. We're going to call this the Bobtronic. Just cleaning up some more stainless steel piping so we can fit it to the SVJ exhaust tips. Then he's going to have to work out how many bends, twists and turns it's going to take to fit onto that downpipe. Whilst I'm working out how to fit the parking sensors in the challenge front bumper, which looks like I'm going to drill out part of the grille to fit the parking sensor mounts in, which seems to work, but then the parking sensor is obstructed by the actual grille. So I'm going to need to cut out parts of the grille which obstruct the parking sensor so then it can actually sit through it. just like this. And that seems to work. Now we can put the grill back into the front bumper. Whoa, yeah. That has worked. Now to do the rest. There's two more in the grill in the middle, and then another one on the right hand side. I'm just drilling two holes to mount the parking sensor mounts into the grill surround, bolt them up, and then cut out the grill so the parking sensor can go through it. And it kind of gives it that OEM look. You would never know. And the loom I've glued to the back of the bumper with a bit of tape whilst it sets. Next up, Bob is test fitting. It looks pretty good so far. Time for more modifications.
Right, the next thing I have to do is get these pipes into it. So these ones that we were looking at earlier, these are made of titanium, so I can't use these. They don't weld to steel, so I need to go back to the machine shop now, make these new, bring it back and fit them.
And whilst Bob goes back to the machine shop, my dad's got a job to do.
I'm going to build up the new door. There's the old one. It's the new one.
If you remember, the old door was completely perished. There's no fixing that. And what my dad's got to do is strip out the old door and fit it all into the new one. Bob has come back for fittings.
Now we've got our little fitting pieces we can put into the top of the pipe. I'm going to do a little weld all the way around, and that's it replicated.
These fittings are sensors for the OPF, and the car will no longer have OPF filters in the exhaust. But to trick the sensors to thinking that it does still have it, it seems like they're actually spaced out away from the exhaust. Bob's fittings now fit the sensors, and he's just going to copy the background design of how far away they space the sensors away from the exhaust. And this should trick the OPF sensors into thinking that everything is still all good with the exhaust. And that's one done. Time to drill a hole in the exhaust so now we can fit the fitting into it. Cleans it off, slides it in place, and then adds more weld around it to hold it down. Meanwhile, the old door is stripped and my dad can start putting up the new door, putting in the wing mirror, the door lock, and the door handle, tighten that all in, then the window regulator can slide in place. Because we don't have any power to the car, we're not able to adjust the window to make it fit nicely in the gap, but we're going to have to do that once we figure out how to get this car started and get the ignition on. Once that's all on, we can hang the door onto the hinges and check the panel gap to the rear quarter. And that all does look pretty good. Last thing to do is slide the window in, but as I mentioned, we can't align it. So for now, it's just going to pop it into the clamp, tighten the clamps up, and then slide on the door card. This will have to come off later to align the window, but for now, it's easier to put it on than store it somewhere in the unit where it might get lost. And go back to the exhaust, it seems like Bob is all done. It's time to test fit it to make sure it all fits and works. You slide it in, then screw in the OPF sensors, and finally hang on the bumper to see if it all fits. Look at that though. That is mental. This should be an absolute fire breather because it's basically straight out the turbos, the straightest, shortest pipe ever, so we should get maximum flames. I don't know how safe that is next to this battery thing, but we're going to roll with it. Yeah. Just need to start now, and we need to fit the front end and the rest of this kit. The next job will be hopefully to get the wing on, but as you say, we've got to make some modification with the aluminium brackets and everything. But we're moving in the right direction. Things were looking good. There was a few modifications left to do with the exhaust and the rear end of the car, but weeks passed, then months, and we stopped receiving any Ferrari parts for this car, which was a problem. It's been months since the last clip. And if you remember what I said at the very start of the video about us getting the parts for the challenge to Dale and putting them on the 296 and that we had to all do it in one video and not release this video until we got all the parts, well, this always happens.
Everything's been okay with reference to wings, they're on their way, but there are other parts that Ferrari have blocked.
Right. Okay. And is that, well, is that now because I don't have a 296 challenge car?
necessarily. It's not exactly just because you don't have a 296 challenge car.
Yeah.
But some manufacturers, what they'll do is they'll block a component to get prior release or information before they release the components. So because you have got a 296 GTB
Yeah.
and it's not a Ferrari challenge car, obviously the chassis number that we supply them is for a 296 GTB.
Right.
So that side of things is fine, but if it's a flat component and it doesn't match the vehicle exactly, then they can't supply it.
Now some parts did show up, like the F1 rain light on the rear and some side skirts, but that wasn't the issue. Here's the front bumper. Looks unreal, right? But this will not fit on, as you can see down here, the radiator is in the way. And the same goes to the other side. The standard radiators protrude out of the top. That's one issue. The other issue is, if you line it up to this wing, you can see that where that goes around the headlight, there, look how short it is off the wing. So we realised there's two things that we need. We can remove those radiators, because on the 296 Challenge car, it has a giant radiator in the middle, and if we do that, we're going to lose the storage. And if we put a massive radiator in the middle and use the standard bonnet, which doesn't have any vents in it, that radiator is just going to get really hot and not going to have any cooling. So I figured out that we need the radiator in the middle, and because we need the radiator in the middle, we're going to need the bonnet as well, because the bonnet on the 296 Challenge has vents in it to get rid of the hot air out of the radiator. So what's to stop us just using a VIN number of a 296 Challenge car and ordering the parts pretending we've got one?
Sometimes they only make a certain amount of the component, so they block that part to make sure that they know exactly where it's going and it's going to the right car. Or it could be a position where it's a structural car, and they want to understand what's happening to the vehicle before they release that component.
So it's looking very unlikely that we're going to get the rest of these parts from Ferrari legitimately. Now we've contacted people who have got a 296 Challenge car, and they don't want to ruin their relationship with Ferrari by ordering a part that shouldn't be for their car. So if they're ordering wings, bonnets and bumper, Ferrari going to ask for photos what's happened to yours, they could argue that they need spares, but I don't know, not many people are willing to do it. So at this point, Ferrari do not want, especially us, building a 296 Challenge road car. So we've got to figure out a solution. And whilst I tried to figure out that solution, I thought it was a good time to send the car to the body shop to get it painted. First thing the lads are going to do is prep that rear quarter, sanding down all the welds that Bob did to make sure it's nice and smooth. Then, I prep it for paint. And once the car's fully masked, it's time to go in with the first layer of spray, which is actually epoxy sealer. Once that's set, it's time for a layer of primer, and then we can begin the paint. I've decided to keep this the same colour the car was originally, as I've not really seen many Ferraris in this colour, and I do think it looks pretty cool. Once the guys have finished at the body shop, the car got delivered back to my unit where we can unload it and continue the full build. But now that it's in the new paint, it's completely transformed it. It no longer looks like it's had an incident with a wall. Okay, it is back and it is looking sick. It looks so much better. But it's still not done. And it still doesn't start. And we've still got a blacklist from Ferrari. But we've seemed to have found a loophole. I don't blame Ferrari for doing it, because of course we're ordering parts for a car that we don't have. It's like us ringing a Koenigsegg and ordering a windscreen for a Koenigsegg which we don't have. So I do get it. But you may notice the front wings are on. And we may have mentioned before that the front wings, the standard front wings, are different. And the only visual difference that you guys can probably see is that the shield is missing off that one. But these are different. And if you check it out, the thickness of that compared to the thickness of that is
a lot thicker on this one, and I think that's to allow for the racing slip of the 296 Challenge car. But because that's thin, the bunker also follows on, so we needed them. But I think the first thing to do, before we get overwhelmed with all the stuff back there, is try to build this forward. So we need to pay attention back to this side and start fitting the rear wing. Then we can fit all the back panels and go further on. And also, I don't know if you guys know this as well, but this jacket is pretty much the same colour as the car, which are out literally today. And last time we released these on hwbt.shop site, they sold out instantly. So if you're going to grab them, now's the time to grab them. I don't want to get this dirty, so I'm going to take this off and take that rear bumper off. Let's get this car in the air and get the rear end of it complete. Off with the wheels, off with the rear bumper again, and now it's time to fit the wing. These are the brackets which hold the wing, but remember that bar was in the way. I'm going to use a bolt to secure it to the rear chassis leg, then I can roughly see where it fits, and I've got to do the same for the other side. Right, here's the back panel, and this is the issue. We couldn't get a new back panel because Ferrari wouldn't sell us the Challenge one. And what I wanted to do is have the Challenge one, so with the holes in for the wing, then I know exactly where the wing will fit, but we don't. So what we've got here is the standard one, but a stencil made out here, which you had to go to a race team and copy their one and cut the hole and make the stencil hole. The issue is ours is double layer, it's slightly different. But this is where it sits on the race team's one. So we've copied it, and now we want to see whether this is going to fit in the exact same place. So let's slide this back panel on, and then once it's sitting in place, we'll go underneath and see if the wing plates are going to line up with the brackets going through the holes. Yeah, it looks like it does. I think that's good. Which means we're going to have to commit to cutting the standard panel. But before we do that, we need to get rid of the bar, which is preventing us from putting in those wing panels. So remove the wing brackets again, and then cut out this section here. And now the quarter panel loses its support. Yeah? But this bar here, I should be able to cut down to then re-support the quarter panel up, which isn't going to obstruct that wing bracket. I've now got to do the same on the right-hand side quarter panel. And now that that piece is cut out, I can reinstall the wing brackets in on the left side and the right side, then get my pen to mark out the holes where I'm going to need to drill out the mounting points for the wing brackets, remove the wing brackets again, and then start drilling out the holes I've just marked. Once they're all drilled out, I can insert a rib nut, and now I've got some thread which I can put a bolt in to tighten down the bracket for the rear wing. And whatever I do on one side, I've got to copy it on the other side. Next thing is to cut down a piece of aluminium so I can slot this between the crash bar and the rear quarters frame so I can support it up again. I'm going to have to get Bob to come back in later to weld that all up. But now I can reinsert the wing brackets one last time, and now I can actually bolt the wing plates to the wing brackets. Look how high that thing sits. Next up, the wing. That's gonna look mental. But to fit it, I've got to cut out some sections on that rear panel. I'm using the stencil that we took from the race team to make sure it sits in the perfect place, and then using a Dremel to cut out the two holes for the wing plate. Once they're done, it's time to fit it to the back of the car. It's all looking good. Guys, it's dialed. Look at this. We're in. We're not in because the bolts are still in, stopping me from putting this panel in. And this has now got to be painted by the body shop, and then like neaten up my tops and the paint of those. But the wing fits dialed. The one thing I can't let it go to the body shop without seeing the wing bolted on. I think it needs to be on it. And then also like, yeah, I just want to see the wing on to make sure the wing does actually go on. Then we'll send this to the body shop. Bob's got to weld that up, and then we can finally do the final fit of all the rear. We might have room at the front up whilst we wait for that though. But let's fit this wing on.
GT3RS is going to look baby next to this, isn't it?
I like that. That was good.
Look at that. Yeah, that is crazy. Like, even if they do make a 296XX, I don't think it's going to have a wing that big. Because you just don't need it on a road car, do you? But I do need it on the road as well. This wing is looking huge. Which got me excited for the rest of the kit that we're going to be fitting to it. Okay, good news, the wing fits. So we can send the panel off to the body shop. And then we can do all the final fits around there. Put the Bobtronic exhaust back on and everything, finish off the rear, let's get it to the body shop. So off the wing comes one last time, and this plate is going to the body shop. And whilst we've got that there, Bob's here to weld up the support bars I made for the rear quarter. Again, we never would have been able to do this build without Bob, so as a thanks, go head over to Bob's YouTube channel and subscribe to him. With those support bars in place, I can now start fitting up all the rear panels on the back of the car. Sliding back in the exhaust, clamping it down for good this time, and then I'm going to go to the side skirts. The 296 has extra wide side skirts with bigger cooling inside, but whilst I started fitting this, I found something out. Right, this is mad looking. I'm just doing the side skirt, took the side skirt off, then I've seen this module on this side, and it has the same module on the other side, which the plug had ripped out. But what I noticed is that this has got a little ground coming off it on there. And I was like, well, I don't remember the one on that side having a ground going to it. So we've come over to this side, but this one, like the plug was broken, it's all ripped out. You can't buy the plug separately, you have to buy a whole entire loom to get the plug separately. So we have to like make it work ourselves. But then I'm like, well, is there a ground? We've got two grounds there, and then we've hooked up this to see if we can find anything. And we found these two broken cam wires going. Like, I don't know where they've come from, somewhere up here, isn't there? So up there, but we found those two broken cam wires. And if Ferrari is saying you need every single thing plugged in, all the cam, that was the first thing he said to us, didn't it? You need all the cam plugged in for it to even start thinking about working. So there is potential. So here's two broken wires. I actually found looking for a ground wire. So whilst we're there, we're just going to cut out the rest of the tape on this loom to see if there's any more damage. My dad found a few more broken wires, but that's it. He's now going to fix up all of those wires, put some heat shrink around them all, and then tape it back up with loom tape. Right, if he has done a good enough repair, we might have something different happen than what happened before. Let's get everything plugged in again, and I'm just going to see if anything different happens. So we plugged everything back in and tried the car one more time. Yeah, exactly the same was happening. Still the same. Never mind. Although there was something different. Plug in the car immediately. It never said that before. It said hybrid fault or something before, didn't it? But even when we went to plug in the car immediately, the hybrid wouldn't charge. It recognised it's connected, but the battery wasn't charging at all. It's got further, still not quite. Then we just keep building, still got a lot to go. We've got side skirts, and we've got that front bumper to try and figure out with the radio as well. Okay, let's continue building. The rear panel has now come back from the body shop, so I can fit that over the rear wing plates and then start fitting up the rest of the car at the back. Panel on. The next thing to go on is the bumper, but remember, we need to solve the issue with having no registration plate guys, because race cars don't have registration plates. So that's why I've got these. So these are little LEDs, little positive and a negative, and also a motor light, so we can drill directly into the number plate and have the lights on the number plate. Problem is, I need power. So we've got the F1 light. That's the only place I can see where to mount the number plate. So the number plate will have to go over the top of that, and then the two lights sit in the number plate. I think I'm going to pull the wiring down and go through the F1 light
somewhere and then go off the main loop. But now I need to find out whether these lights will work off the main loop. So we're going to put them in, splice into the main loop, see if we can get these to power up, and if they do, we'll make it a little while and get it to work. So first, I'm just going to plug the wires in to the plug, which usually goes into the reg lights. Yeah! Get in! So then, we're just going to put some spade connectors on the end of my new registration plate lights, like this. I've then cut the plug off the main loom for each registration plate light, and I'm going to put we've got fans on, we've got the hoses working. That's looking really good. We can plug in the radiator. Right. So I don't know whether the car's going to like that, but we'll see, because it's now become a race car. And find out how we're going to do that. But before we freshly painted race car bumper, which looks and of course we needed to modify more of the front end to fit. Now I'm drilling holes in the crash bar and inserting threads in there because we need a place to screw in these tethers for the front splitter. The front splitter on the bumper is so big that it needs these tethers to support it. Once we're happy with that, I can slide back in the headlights and then it's time for the front bumper again. The tethers slide through the drill and then we can push the bumper in place and everything is looking good. Last little bits of adjustment and we're pretty much there. The bumper is finally off. Headlights line up to an extent. Not great, but we can work around that. Again, everything is still a work in progress. The splitter though, downforce. Now we're on it, this is going to be tough because the wings could be too far out, the bonnet could be too far forward. We're just going to rest it in and then we'll work from there. All this stuff takes so long, but still doesn't start. Let's get the bonnet. Again, this bonnet I managed to get from the race team. Thank you so much for allowing us to do it. But as you guys will see later, all of this seems to backfire on them. That holds the radiator, the reservoirs go in there. It's basically a standard bonnet, but it feels way lighter. What? That feels pretty good. Is it fitting alright? Yeah, that feels good. I have no idea why this isn't moving forward. But this is the part that goes in the middle of the bonnet. So before we fit the bonnet, we've got to add that centre grill bit. So this slides in from underneath. There's a couple bolts on the top. Then I've had to make some kind of prototype brackets to hold it in place because we weren't able to order them. These are going to go in to where the hinges were previously. Whether this will actually line up with the bonnet or not will be interesting. The new bonnet doesn't use the original hinges. On race cars, the bonnet kind of sits on top and then pins hold it in place, which makes it way easier to remove and faster. I've bolted these brackets where the hinges used to be, and then I've got these aero latches, which are actually off the SVJ, to slide onto the brackets, and then we're just going to see if the position they're in is all good. And so far, they do seem to line up with the holes, which are already cut out in the race bonnet. We had to do a few more adjustments to get it just about right, and then we can fit the brackets to the front. There's no original mounting points on this, so we had to drill and put in some threads into the chassis legs to hold the front aero latches. Then we can slide the bonnet down in place, and it does fit. It will need some more adjustment to get it right though. That's actually looking good. The bonnet is a little low, but if we raised it to where we need to go, it lines up with the wing perfect there. We just don't have the bonnet pins yet. I've just ordered them, so I'm hoping they'll probably rivet them in, and then the pin will slide in and hold it in. But I think once that's held in there, like that, that's pretty good, isn't it? It looks amazing. I think that looks really good. Good work. We need to work out the aircon. I don't know what we're going to do next. Could be anything. We'll figure it out. Now, in the previous video that we put out, we showed you guys the problems that we had with getting it started. And one of the top comments told us that the 296 doesn't have a pyro fuse. The only solution to get it started is a brand new SRS module.
install that, everything will be restored immediately.
We're going to try an airbag module. This was only £300 from Ferrari themselves. Yes, we did reset ours. It had no crash data on when we reset it, but someone has said that it needs a new one of these, but they might not have had the airbag team to be able to reset there, so it's worth a try, and then we'll see if there's anything different with whatever it is. So let me pop this in.
I was feeling skeptical about this, but as someone who suggested it, I had to take the chance to see whether it would work.
Original airbag module is out, new one is in. Let's just see if that makes any difference. Here we go.
But it was still the same.
Right, I put the old one back in because I don't think it made much difference because I've been bing, that's about it. Okay, back to square one, that didn't work.
So we continue building up the car. Next thing to go in is the roof lining. Once we pop that roof lining in, it's time for the windscreen. I have to apply primer around the area where I'm going to put the ceiling, and then also when I get the windscreen, which I got from Ferrari, I'll have to apply the primer to the windscreen as well, and then I can apply the ceiling around the car where the windscreen's going to sit. It is genuinely looking like we're going to entirely build this car without it starting, and then just hope that we can take it to Ferrari or someone with the software is able to get the car running at the end. But we've got more chance on Ferrari doing that if the car is in one piece. Next thing to go in are all the trims underneath the bonnet, and I've had to modify this to fit the race kit. Then the wiper blades can go on, and once those trims are in, it's looking almost complete there.
Final things left to do. So, we need those bonnet things for the bonnet to be able to put the bonnet on properly. But that's okay. The radiator is plumbed into an extent apart from the overflow hose, which needs to go from there to there, and I have ordered a hose which we are able to do that. The air conditioning radiators go each side. Now, all they do is you have one aircon rad, another aircon rad, and then this part on the top here, they connect the two air conditioning rads together, which is fine. I can connect them together, no problem. That old part still works. So I've got to work out a way how I can mount them. Again, I'll probably get Bob to make some brackets. The aircon lines are actually easy to make, but to make them, I've got to know where the radiator is going to mount in the first place, so that I know how short or long I need to make the aircon line. Then you've got the dryer for the aircon, which takes all the moisture out of the aircon. That goes up and connects to the top up there. But again, to do all this and work all this out, I need to know where these are going to mount first. And to do that, the bumper needs to come off. But I don't think the car is going to start without this on. The car won't know this isn't on because there's no electrical connections on there. So I don't think this is going to stop us from starting the car. It's just something that we need to solve later on. There's no arch lines in each side, and there's no window trays up, but that's because the car's going to have to be taken apart, put back together again. The last bit to kind of finish the look of the car would be the wheels, because these were just the standard wheels. We need a little bit wider to bring it out to match the body kit. So the wheels is going to be the final thing that we need to put on. So we just wait for Wheel Mania to come with the wheels, and then other than that, we then need to work out how we're going to start it. If we can't start the car, we're going to have to take it to Ferrari. But I don't know if Ferrari are going to work on the car with the modifications that we've done to it. That's going to be a phone call for later. So for now, let's get the wheels on, see what the car looks like, almost finished, and then let's try and work out how we're going to start it. Come on.
Off come the old wheels to make room for the new ones.
Dips is here, and we're going to try and work out what we're doing. Like, literally, Dips is our only hope now, because I just don't think Ferrari. Yeah, no pressure at all.
Dips then got to work at checking everything on the car just before Wheel Mania arrived.
Yeah, boy. Oh, they look sick.
And here are the new wheels. What an improvement from the standard ones. These wheels are Vossen wheels in collaboration with Novitec, and I'm sure they're going to look amazing. Dips is still working away, checking everything electrical on the car, whilst the Wheel Mania guys start fitting the new wheels to the 296.
across Novatech as well. Perhaps you still got one on the same Novatech.
We're going to check the equipment out. Once we lower the car down, it's still over the dips to try and get this car running, or at least starting. We need to hit the Bobtronic code.
Right. Dips is back to you. Right, whilst Dips do that.
If you need wheels, go to Wheelmania. If you need your wheels refurbishing, go to Wheelmania. Or if you just need customized wheels, you want to make them completely your own, go to Wheelmania for that as well.
Link is on the screen.
Down to Dips to get this car started now. My day's ruined. Come on, Dips.
Dips continue working away at trying to get it started.
You have people from all over the world trying to help him.
But this just doesn't seem like something that's been done before. So I went to the last resort, calling Ferrari.
Hello, I'm just calling to. I wonder whether I can speak to either a technician or someone. I just need a bit of advice with this 296 on whether I need to drop it to you guys or any advice before we kind of move further. Really, I don't know who's the best to speak to that, whether it be yourself or somebody else. We can't even get the ignition on. The only thing that the car will do is flash the hazard light. That is it. Yeah. Okay. And if I brought the car down to you guys, is there like a huge wait time on when you would get onto the car? There is a question mark on whether they can help if the car is crash damaged, because I assume they're not allowed to work on a crash damaged car if they haven't repaired it themselves, because it's all the unknown. I understand that as well, but then that puts us in a situation of where do we go from there, because we can't solve it and Ferrari can't solve it, or we can't, so I have an order.
Right, so we've got some bad news. When we look at the fault codes on here, it's actually bringing up crash fault on the EV system. So if you look there, crash data error, and that is a present fault as well. It's not an old fault. So that is definitely going to cause us an issue. This is exactly the same issue that we had with the Revolto, where it was flagging up the fault on the high voltage system, and because the car was so new, it cleared the fault. So the software had been developed for it. Same as this as well. As soon as you try and clear the fault, it's bringing it straight back up. We've also got another fault that is concerning as well, is the fuse box at the bottom down here next to the battery is called C2. When we look at C2 here, it's showing us canvas off. So that's telling us that we've got no problems with the canvas system as well. So that again is a present fault. So I think first and foremost we need to attack the HV system, get that cleared. That might then clear the canvas control as well. Yeah.
Oh, so it has to go to a Ferrari approved body shop. Yeah. Okay. So Ferrari can't look at the car unless it goes to a Ferrari approved body shop to inspect the repair. And the car isn't going to pass the inspection because we've now fitted it with a race kit. And on top of that, we haven't used Ferrari's correct repair procedures to do our repair because they're not available to us. So it's looking unlikely that Ferrari would even touch this car. And with that crash data that's stored on the battery, just like the Revolto, we may need to order a new battery to get around that. And if that battery needs coding to the car, the only people that can do it are Ferrari. So we're in a tough situation now. The only good side we can take out all of this is that the car is pretty much rebuilt. GT3RS JWW. Some of you might know that he's attempting to do a sub 7-minute lap of the North Star, and whilst out training for it, he had a small accident. Now I saw this as a perfect opportunity to not only help a friend out, but to also test my ability. We've got our first customer for the call-out boys here. It's Mr. JWW here. I know, he bought his car fresh off the rig. It's a moment on the wall, and we've actually volunteered to repair it. Because we own his car inside out now, and I've just on the photos, we've quoted 24 hours of labour and parts. It's on his journey to do a Nürburgring lap time. Under 7 minutes, that was it.
Plan is to do a sub 7-minute stage.
Sub 7-minute full lap.
We haven't even made it. Well, we haven't even made it to timing stage yet.
Now, neither of us have actually seen the damage on the car yet. We've only saw photos. And I'm hoping we don't find any more hidden damage, which is going to prevent us actually rebuilding this car. As I'd love to be able to get this done for James in that 24 hours.
It's looking expensive,